This is a work in progress of this painting. I'm mainly working on the wing of this owl in the entirety of this video, so that's kind of what we're looking at here. I'm adding textures to the top of the shoulders, picking up some of the edges along the owl's shoulder here, getting smaller eraser. Now I'm going to start doing some hatching lines. So as you can see, I'm not trying to be extremely realistic. These details are so very small, like a very small part of the owl painting, that it's really not worth it for me to put in a lot of extreme details. That's why I'm using a larger brush and a larger pencil size, because I'm not trying to lay in all these tiny little bitty details. So right now I'm looking at the patterns of the colors on his feathers. So we're looking at oranges and beiges in areas, some of the spots, the darker spots and lighter spots that are in the feathers. And we're also looking at the darker grays and medium grays and kind of the general placement of those areas. So I'm not trying to copy the reference image exactly. I'm just using it as sort of a knowledgeable reference that I can kind of, use as a, sort of a map or a direction to go in. So I'm just going to continue doing these hatching marks here. I'm really pleased with the little envelope and the wax seal that I just did kind of from memory. But I really like the deepness of the color there. It looks really good. So I'm just sort of filling out the grays that are going along the shoulder of the owl. Thinking about the different colors and spots, then I can just add textures and elements that make the owl more realistic, having a more realistic sort of texture to them. I really liked how these markings came about, and they're not super realistic, of course, but illustrative. And I just really like the little white markings on top of the gray. It's really fun. To me, very loose in my interpretation of the reference image, because as you can see, there aren't very many white marks like that, but I liked it so much, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep adding more. So now I'm just trying some different colors here, bringing in some of the orange and sort of umber colors that are in these feathers. It was a little difficult for me to get that exact color, and I did kind of feel like I wanted to do something a little bit more richer, because it's almost like a dull peach salmon kind of color, much duller than what I am using here. Just trying a more ochre color to add some layering colors on top, which I found in the style of work that I've been creating digitally, I really enjoy. And I enjoy that with color pencil, traditional color pencil, and that's kind of what I equate the style of work that I'm doing in Adobe Fresco or digital medium is watercolor with ink and color pencil. So for me, what I'm trying to do is mimic the textures and the same kind of look as those traditional mediums. And so when I layer, different colors on top of each other, it's very similar to how that would look if I were using, say, a Prismacolor pencil, and layering, a more yellow ochre color over a burnt sienna or something like that. And so that's kind of the way my mind works when I'm producing this kind of work. I really rely on my experience as a traditional medium artist to recreate these textures and to recreate these kind of looks and feels that would be very similar to doing this in a traditional medium. So it's very intentional that I'm using these particular brushes and that I'm using this particular look, because eventually I would like to be able to do more of my traditional medium and work more with watercolor inks and color pencils as I have in the past. So I'm just sort of zooming out here to get a better look at the shapes of some of these feathers along this ridge of orange that's coming from the upper left to right at the top of the shoulder, or the top of the wing. So I'm just laying in sort of like a soft color pencil layer, these grays, and kind of laying out sort of a vague, approximate sort of sections. Like you can see I'm sort of leaving an area here that it doesn't have the gray. Just like on the owl reference image, there's a bit of the orange or peachy color there. And I'm trying to replicate that. Not exactly, but approximately. Because really, I'm wanting to create something original. So I'm not trying to use these reference images as exact replicas, because that would really go against the concept of the art and the drawings, and wouldn't be very creative, for me to just copy photograph exactly. So I'm bringing in some of that orange sienna colors there along the edge of that gray. Just doing sort of a light textured, I would call it a wash if it were watercolor, but I'm doing the color pencil brush. You can see here the feathers along the left side, just under the letter, are a little bit different than the reference image already. So I'm going into my settings and I'm gonna actually try something a little different. I'm looking for sort of the touch, I forget what it's called. There we go. So this will actually show my touches. So it's going to give us a little blue circle wherever I touch. If I'm touching the Apple Pencil, or if I'm touching with my finger, like doing some motions and zooming in like that, you'll be able to see like where I'm making marks now more clearly. That might help, which is a little awkward to draw with that activated. Took a little bit of getting used to here. I eventually kind of get around it. And with the wing, you know, because of what I'm actually creating, it's very rough edged. It doesn't have to be precise. I'm really just trying to mimic a roundabout texture and shape and color variation that you would find in the owl's wings. I just really love creating these textures. I mean, I'm all about it. So like, if you followed me in the past, I really love pen and ink and doing cross hatching and hatching work. So that love is not gone away by any means, but it's these hatching marks and textures and colors and things that I just really have fallen in love with over the years. Before I did pen and ink drawings as an adult, I had a lot of experience in color pencil through high school. That was one of the main mediums that we used. I think most likely because it wasn't as messy and a little bit more easy to maintain, but more portable. You know, there wasn't a lot of brushes and paints and things like that. We really got into using Prismacolor color pencils, those soft wax color pencils, and still to this day one of my favorite mediums to use. And I have a massive brand new box of color pencils that I would love to get out and just experiment with. But it's really hard right now to be able to do that with small kids. So I'm zooming out to just kind of get a perspective on the size of these feathers in comparison to the rest of the wing. So I'm I'm going to add some white textures in here. Anyway, my history, I guess you could say, as an artist is with color pencils. And I didn't really do like hatching much with color pencil work. I typically would have built up the wax to a very thick coating and like would sort of burnish it so that the wax would mix into each other and it would be very glossy, and it would get cloudy and foggy because it would be so thick. But over the years, as an adult artist, I started to use color pencils in a much more lighter fashion, and really appreciate the layering of colors with color pencil and the transparency that you can get in the textures, and just really enjoy that part of it. So I've been trying to think of ways to bring color back into my traditional art, and that's one way that I know that I would really enjoy and be able to do some of these same hatching, cross-hatching markings and textures that I would be doing in a pen and ink artwork. So it's kind of like trying to find that happy medium, you know, literally like trying to find that thing that, you know, you really enjoy, the types of marks you like to make, and for some reason that just really, I love making the hatching marks. And as you can see here, so I'm drawing these feathers. I'm trying to curve these marks around so that I'm forming the edges of the feathers and creating more of a feather-like texture, because they have sort of a curve along where they end, or overlapping in areas. So trying to reproduce that with my hatching marks. So instead of making the straight sort of contouring marks, I'm doing an intentional sort of curving mark that you would do to create a kind of the end of a feather, sort of rounded. So as you can see in the reference image, there's sort of like shorter rounded feathers towards the top of the shoulder, and that's where I'm kind of going right now. Then I noticed in the lower center of those, there's sort of like a white speck or white dot at the end of each one of those. So I started to add that in there to mimic the look of the feathers in the reference image. Just kind of zooming out to kind of compare and see where I am on the wing. So when I was at this point and I was trying to flesh out these areas over here to the left, I realized that what I had created was a lot longer as far as those upper feathers there that are just underneath the head of the owl. Mine are a lot longer, but and I realize, you know, that might not be atomically correct or whatever, but I really liked how those looked and what I created, so I'm kind of leaving that. and working around it and trying to just continue with the rest of the wings and creating more texture. So I basically did something that wasn't quite, very close to my reference image, but I liked it enough that I was like, okay, I'm going to keep that and just keep going with it. So that happens all the time. And it, again, it makes it more original, not precise, which is totally, to me, that's fun, I'm not crazy about like doing technically precise drawings of things, so getting that little bit of creativity and creating my own look to the feathers is fun. So I'm just adding a little bit of darker browns in here and just giving it a little bit more variation in color. I'll probably be using that color throughout the wing in different areas. Just doing a little overlay of the orange color. And that's one of my favorite parts too, doing little flicks of fur or feathers or hair just off the edge there is really fun. That's something that I didn't really do, I feel like, until more recently. Like in my previous work, I would always try to do more of a smooth line there and wouldn't create, lines of, or, just the odd hair or sprig just sticking out, and I just, it feels like a much more natural feel, gives it that real like feather looking texture. The same with the woman's hair. As you can see on the edge there where bits of hair, it's not smooth, it's more realistic in that way, that it's not just completely laying down flat and smooth. It's really like that, like flyaways. So now I'm laying in some of the longer feathers that are coming up below the shorter ones, and just basically getting that general shape laid out there. And I'll overlay some different hatching lines to give the appearance of the feather and that feathery texture. Do some different colors with the oranges and whites and things like that. But the more and more I draw owls, the more and more I fall in love with them, and I can't wait to draw different kinds of owls. I've been drawing a lot of barn owls, but just because I think they're so magical looking, and I don't know if that's because of the whole labyrinth thing or whatever, but that movie, but I just really love the look of the barn owl, and the textures and the wings and the colors and that kind of thing. I've actually been collecting owl reference images for years and years, and so have quite a collection of different types of owls. And I actually bought I've got books, like reference image books and encyclopedias that are just birds and insects and owls and all kinds of things like that. So it'll be fun to bring some of those out and do some more sort of nature aspects to my drawings. I love that texture. I love the little dots, the little hatches, dots of texture. So much fun. It's those little things, you know, they're really, I don't know, for me, it just really draws you into a painting or a drawing, those little details. And so much fun to create too. It's like a bit of abstract in the larger painting, you know. So these feathers, I'm probably going to have to work on a little bit more. They're very cool. They're almost like sails, sort of sticking out there. And I haven't ever seen that before, and I don't know what that is, or if that's an odd thing with this particular owl. But just something about the way those feathers are laying. So they're really interesting, and I'm probably going to have to go back over those. And so try not to do the sort of scribbling where you can see it sort of hatched over and over again. I try to do things in a more continuous pattern when I'm doing that. It just looks a lot nicer and a lot more flowy, I guess. So I'm just filling in some of the feather markings along the edge of the owl's wings there.